we installed a generator here at the college. We planned for the start of the third term to be better, and then all of a sudden, after 1 week, literally I was in this class 2 days, and then everybody says, no, we've got to go back to everything from home because of the load shedding. Because I was, I was Zooming. I came into Zoom from here because there was load shedding where I stayed. But now, maar nou kan ek nie van hier af Zoom nie, want die studente kan nie inskakel nie, want waar hulle is dit load shedding. So it was, you basically had your timetable here, and you had your load shedding schedule here, and you had your Zoom timetable over here, and trying to mix and match them on a weekly basis. So yeah, I did a 2 week in advance kind of planning as to what's going to happen. Daarin kan jy daarso sien, hoofstuk 13, volgende hoofstuk. Baie dankie. Kom ek sit die ligte vir julle af vir hierso. En ek dink mense het meer gesit ook as wat jy in die verlede gesit het.
Ja. Ek voel dit.
Radio. Okay, for both of the groups, online and away, the majority of your assignments, number 2, that we discussed yesterday, you will see you can almost complete once you have done the chapters that we are completing today. Chapter 13, dealing with specifically recruitment, and how do you select a correct candidate that applies for a vacant position, which is pretty much what you're going to do in your assignment, is what we're going to be covering in the next, it's not a lot of slides. I think it's not a lot of slides. It's just 10 or so, I think, 14 slides, I think. The importance of selecting the right candidate for a vacancy. The greatest benefit, I think, for a business in selecting the right person that fits into the culture of a business is it makes that person, it makes that job that they have to complete being done by the most efficient individual. So your productivity of the correct candidate, somebody who knows what to do in a particular, what to do in that particular job, will just do it better and more efficiently. And then obviously the cost. If you employ somebody who are not completely qualified and with the minimum qualifications that you have listed for that particular vacancy, the impact is going to be financial, because you will have to upskill and train that staff member even more than you would with a normal staff member, or that you just go through the continuous upskilling and training that's required on an annual basis anyway. But I think it's important at this point to rather go to a specific slide, which is that one on the screen, that basically forms the backbone of this entire chapter. There are 5 steps that's usually, or stages that's usually followed in the recruitment process, where you start initially, and we will look at each of them individually for the rest and the remaining part of this chapter, is to prepare a proper job description. And that's what you're going to be doing in your assignment as well. You've got to be very clear on what you want that person to do. What is that job as a financial advisor in your assignment case study? What does that job entail? What do you want that person to do? What's that person going to do on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis? We'll get to that in more detail now. And secondly, then identify where am I going to find my candidates? Where am I going to start looking? It's where the salesperson is prospecting for potential customers and have different methods that they use and where they're going to find their prospects. And exactly the same happens when a company is recruiting candidates for a vacant position. They must have a certain methodology as well and process that they follow and resources that they use to find candidates. And we look at all the different and the most popular and the most commonly used sources in this chapter as well. And then once you've done that, you've got to design a proper application form. Most of the applications nowadays are done online, and because it's done online, it's much easier because you can you have the information stored into a database immediately. But when it comes to the designing, as I said yesterday in our preparation session as well, make sure that your design of your application form is not too complicated. And like the example I've used in the previous session, that it's not a 5, 6, 7 page that people have to complete. When I lost my job a number of years ago, before I started with Prestige, I was obviously looking for work, and I was on the internet a lot. And once you get to those positions that is available, and you get to page 3, and it's a difficult, user unfriendly form that you have to complete, then you somehow not complete it. And I think that is very often the case, and that is a mistake that should not be made by companies who design application forms for vacant positions. Once you've shortlisted your candidates, you will obviously start the interviewing process, and we'll go through all the different things, the do's and don'ts of interviewing, although I think yesterday we sort of crossed some of that already. And then finally, if you have 1 or 2 candidates that are very close to each other and you really don't know which one to pick, there are additional methods that you can use, or supplementary methods, tests that can be done, and the most common ones is usually to do a psychometric test with that individual, find out if they're not a Ted Bundy or have any other kind of twisted personalities that they're not aware of, or that they are hiding, or that I have used, the method that I've used very effectively when I was recruiting is to actually role play, to create situations where you role play and you can find out if that person can actually do their job or not. I'll give you examples as we go along. Right, so the first step was to prepare a job description, and the job description have certain critical information or critical elements that has to be evident and has to be in that job description. Firstly, it would be the title, obviously. And from your case study, we know the title is financial advisor. That will be the position. That's if you are printing business cards and designing footers for your emails or signatures for your emails. That would be what you will write down there. Financial advisor. So be very specific in what the title is of the job. The most important one is number 2. What do you have to do? What do you have to do? What does this job expect of you? And it needs to be very specific and very detailed. Where does your responsibility stop, and where somebody else is responsible for it needs to be clearly indicated as well. And who you report to. If I can use, we discussed it yesterday quickly, or explained to you quickly yesterday. There's a certain process when it comes to setting an exam papers and assignments. There's somebody who's in charge of the particular program or particular module. That person is usually the program coordinator, or we call it short the PC. Then you also have the individual who's the assessor. That's the person who's actually going to design the, who basically on a daily basis is responsible for delivering the work, designing the study guides, working out the timetables, and then also setting exam papers, class tests. And then you have a moderator, somebody that checks that that has been done according to the policies of the company. And then very often, the assessor is also the person who marks it, and the moderator would not be marking, but would obviously be moderating the marking that has been done by the assessor. Okay, so that's a process. That's a clear line of communication. We know, everybody knows according to their job description, and in your job description it says you're the assessor, or you're the moderator, or you're the marker, or you're the lecturer. So you have specific functions and duties to perform based on each of those roles that you play. If I can apply it to Prestige Academy, and that's along those lines, that kind of detail that informs you what to do. If this is done thoroughly and in great detail, it avoids a lot of confusion in the future. There's nothing that annoys a client of a business more than, and I suppose management as well, as staff members who said, but I thought it was Tarin's job. No, it's not. It's Darren's job, actually. So if there's that confusion, it means that somewhere in the job description, there wasn't clarity. And we'll get to that later on as well. But part of the job description, or why the job description needs to be thorough, is that it's also used as a very important platform when your new appointed staff member starts with the company and they go through the induction session where they are, all right, let's go through your job description again so you can meet the people that you have to report to, and it needs to be highlighted again and be clear on what you're expected to do. Nobody likes to hear 3 months later on that, oh, no, you're responsible for this now as well. No, it's not in my contract. You don't want that kind of response, because once you have that response from an employee, it means that you're walking on thin ice. The relationship with that staff member is probably not good at that point, and it can get worse if you don't act on it. But it can be avoided if you are very clear in your description of your duties and responsibilities in your job description. We said point 3, it's important that you also need to know who to report to. Included in your job description needs to be certain technical requirements which refer to specifically the qualifications that you have obtained, or what the candidate must, as a minimum criteria, have achieved. In other words, this position requires you to at least have a 3-year degree. You clearly see that in jobs that's advertised as a line that is used. For this position, the qualification, the minimum qualification is a grade 12 and a code 8 driver's license. It's very clear on what is the minimum qualification that you have to obtain, or that you need to have before you can actually be considered. The location and the geographic area in which you're going to work, it's also very important, because I think it impacts on the candidate or the candidates that apply, because not too many of us want to work or stay too far away from where we work. I think the majority of us here in the metropole in Cape Town, we're quite blessed. I think if you look at the Pretoria, Johannesburg scenario in Gauteng, which are not too far apart, but it's quite a travel because of the amount of traffic that you have. And it might be exciting at the beginning. I can remember when I started working in Stellenbosch, After 3 years, they said, but 2 days a week, I need to also be at the office in Ranabosch. And I was like, well, I'm all right with that. And it was exciting. I didn't have any children. And it's you and your wife, and that's it. So it's quite easy. You manage your timetables, but there's no additional distractions. And distractions, I mean, in the best sense possible, that occupy your time, that you have to also consider in addition, dropping the kids off at school. So I mean, if somebody lives in Durbanville, for instance, it's very possible that they will not favorably consider a job in, let's say, for instance, Muizenberg, because it's quite a travel, especially if you have to drop the kids off at school. It makes your day so much longer, not just getting to work, but also getting back after work. I know that when that year that I worked in Ranabosch as well, I had to leave 6:25 to be in time for the office opening at 8. If I left 6:30 and not 6:25, I will be late. I'll be late. Because but you don't know that initially. You only find it out after about 2 or 3 weeks of traveling. Oh, geez, and you always, and then some days you think, right, today I'm going to get it right, and you leave at 6:15, and all of a sudden there's no traffic on the road. So working out those patterns, that is important, but not just that, because it's important information for the candidate who's looking at the job description that's advertised, but also, also from the point of the business, to ensure that there's no confusion. Let's say, for instance, you're a sales rep for Pick n Pay, and if you have a specific route that you have to, in territory in which you operate, you are going to go to those shops that's on that route, and that's part of your territory in which you operate. And that has to do with also, like you say, your geographical area in which you function, because you don't want a customer, a particular Pick n Pay, not to have a sales rep visit them in a month's time, and another area in which 2 salespeople visit them in the same week, because there's confusion as to works where. So you need to be, from that point, business point, also clear on the geographic area in which the specific candidates are going to operate. Okay. You need to be very clear on number 6, with the degree of autonomy that the employer will have. Is it flexible hours? Are you expected to be at the office every day? Is it one of those scenarios where if your job's done, you can go, kind of thing? Be very specific, and almost sort of working hours. Some businesses just advertise to say a normal 40-hour week. That is not good enough. A normal 40-hour week can mean a lot of things. It could mean a double shift on one day and a whole day off the next day. You've got to be more specific and say, maybe more information would be along the line of, you are going to be expected to work a normal 40-hour week, which will be made up of 8 hours per day with a 1-hour lunch also included, starting at 9 o'clock, finishing at 5 o'clock. That's it. Then that's more clear for the candidate, and then they will say, yes, see, I like, because when somebody looks at a job application and this information is in the job description, they would say, okay, right, yes, okay, I know that, because they have to also then change, if they are successful and they get the job, they have to change some of their routine as well. Maybe they were usually, because in their previous job or their current job, they have a bit more flexibility about their lunch hour, so they could probably go to the gym during lunch. But now, because it won't be possible based on the information in the job description, you are probably going to have to gym before work or gym after work, which means that, okay, right, you need to get somebody else to pick up a kid at school. So that's all part of the planning, and that's why this information is important to put in a job description. And make sure that it's cleared when you do that induction session the first day that the successful candidate starts work. It says there's 6 main sources. It's actually 5. No, I've skipped the page. I need to go to that one. There we go. In your job description, that section that deals with personal specifications that's necessary to clarify. Make sure that this deals more specifically with the personal demeanors that tie in with the culture of the specific company. They wear jacket and tie. They are very formal in their dress. They have a specific dress code. It needs to be very, you need to be clear on contentious issues like maternity leave, for instance. Don't just say in your job description, maternity leave is offered or included. It needs to be more specific. Maternity leave that consists of 1 month prior to a birth and 3 months post-birth. Then you know, that's my 4 months of maternity leave. I'm going to get full pay for those. Or you're not going to get full pay, you're going to get 2/3 pay. You need to be very clear in your job description what specifically maternity leave includes, not just it is included, because it can mean anything. Alternatively, what is your company policy about people who have studs in some parts of their body or tattoos and stuff like that? That is very clear. I mean, I would be very reluctant if to do business with a salesperson visiting me if he has a specific offensive tattoo that's very visible. I just feel uncomfortable. People are different, but most people don't take kindly to that. Or you can get people who don't take kindly to that, and then you have a problem. So be very clear and specific on what you expect from the customer or the candidate in that regard. Right. What's along the lines of minimum qualifications and previous job and previous work experience do you expect? You often see in a job description, and as I said, if you guys Google Careers24, you'll find that the format is of most of the job descriptions is very similar. When it deals with specifically your qualifications and your work experience, it would refer to it and say minimum qualification is a 3-year degree related to the position. In other words, don't apply with a with the engineering degree for a financial position where we basically require a BCom or something similar to that. They would usually say a 3-year qualification or something equivalent to that in a particular industry, and 3 years working experience or 5 years working experience. It's very common to use those lines in a job description, but just make sure that you are clear on the level of work experience. Because waiting tables when you were studying to qualify yourself is work experience, but it's not relative. It's not related to the specific position. Okay, so it's not going to be to your benefit. Okay. Okay, what are you interested in? Be very specific. Ask them if they are members at certain societies, if they have specific hobbies. List them, because if you don't list them, people are going to give you all kinds of very generic, I like hiking, I like traveling. Well, traveling is fine, but traveling to work is expected. Traveling to go on holiday is your own. Traveling can mean a lot of things to many people. Okay. Traveling as a additional interest refers to specifically not to work anywhere else but to work. Right. Personal circumstances, yes. Married. Some people add religion um, in here as well. It brings us to the second step in the recruitment process, and that would be to find the right candidate. And we can find the right candidates for the vacancy at different resources or through different resources. The one that is ideal is internal. If you could move staff around within your company, it would be to your benefit because you already have a track record with that employee. Again, it needs to be, the person needs to still meet the minimum criteria. It's not a question of, oh, geez. Mr. van Rensburg, I know you've been a lecturer with us now, but we have a vacancy in marketing, and I know that you've got a marketing qualification as well. That could be an internal move, but I might not be the right fit for that particular job, or I might not have the right qualification to do that. So you can't just move staff internally because it will be least disruptive, and you know the people that are already employed, but they still have to be able to do that job. Yes.
So if they're not close enough, like I see water marketing, for example, it's sometimes, besides actually studying something they would like do skill coding or something, like go on a short course somewhere or
Yes.
will pay for that.
Yes. That's usually the case because, I mean, to start with, I don't say anybody can lecture, but I don't think anybody can. You need to have certain specific skills. Qualification itself is not necessarily, I think, the highest criteria on that list. I would more say subject expertise is probably greater, because if I'm going to teach accounting, I'll be okay, but I won't be. I don't think the students will be okay because it's not my preferred subject. If they say, listen, we are considering to make a few changes in the company, would you be interested, or we think you might be interested? If you are going to show interest, then we just need to maybe send you on a upskill course on this. Or here's the material for the additional subject. I think have a look at that and see if you can cope with it or not. And yeah, so it does happen, yes. But if that, you're quite right. It's a very valid observation to make sure that the proper training is done of upskilling of an existing staff member is done if they are going to be moved internally. The core business, the core duties of a specific job still needs to be, the candidate, the successful candidate still needs to perform that. So it's not just moving people around, but it would be ideal because it saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of money, and it's a more sure fit because you have a track record with an individual, and you will not approach somebody internally if you're not confident that that person can make that transition. Now that with everybody moving to Stadio, there's already on a monthly basis positions that's internally advertised, because it's not just Prestige now, it's also Molpark and Embry and all those others in the group. So it's that entire internal group are the ones that are getting the internal vacancy, jobs, positions available. I know of somebody or some of the staff already who's going to move. And not move, they're going to stay with the same company because from January next year, there will only be a Stadio. Ja. Yep. Moet ek sê die systems het ons nou is ons besig om te migreer geleidelik.
Ons kan actually niks meer op bestuur.
Jy gaan nie volgende jaar by prestige wees nie. A very effective method, obviously, are recruiting agencies. The majority of the jobs that you see that's on Careers24 or all those online sites are being managed by recruitment agencies. Now, usually the process is that the company says, listen, we don't have the time. We have these and these and these jobs available. That's the criteria. They send it to an agency, they sign an agreement, and then the company who's got the position available, they will still design the job description. But the most agencies have a sort of a generic application form or format that they use, because that is just the first point where they capture the information. So when you go online and you see a job available and you click on it, you read through the job description, you say, oh, okay, that's right. And right at the bottom it says apply now, and you click on apply now. It will take you to a page which is in the application format, application form format. And that is just capturing the personal detail of the individual, which is phone number, contact number, full names, gender, all of these kind of things. Okay, and then they probably will also give you an opportunity to upload the PDF format CV or CV in a PDF format. You'll click on submit. That goes to the company that advertised the job? No, that goes back to the recruitment agency who's managing that site. And they will send that information to the company and said, listen, these people have applied for the position today. So it's a continuous flow of information that goes through, and they would say, oh, we like that one. You can actually put them on a short list. The recruitment agency would then again reply to the candidate and say, listen, we've received your CV, we've sent it to the business in question, and they replied that they are interested. And then at that point, the company who has the job available will take over. They will now start contacting you. And for that service that has been provided to manage that that whole process, the recruitment agency gets a commission or a retainer regarding on what the agreement was between the company and the recruitment agency. It's a safe way to go because it saves time for you to actually deal with it on a daily basis. All the applications that's received, it depends on the size of the business as well. So if it's a small business, then it's not an issue. Then usually the manager takes care of the entire process. But it is sometimes a responsibility that people say, sorry, I don't have the time for that. You do it, and we are prepared to pay you for it. Educational institutions, very nice. I know that at my previous college, we had a deal with Virgin Active. They came to our campus every year in the start of the final term, and they then spoke to the students who were going to graduate at the end of that year. They gave them all the different job descriptions of jobs available at Virgin Active. They gave them detail of vacancies that will be available in a couple of months' time. And then they got the database of the students from us, and they then handpicked and selected and contacted the students directly. So using a educational institution is a very good way of sourcing new employees, because you know that those people are going to graduate. They will have the minimum criteria academically and qualification that's needed. And I know that a lot of the bigger businesses have taken that whole process to a new level or to a different level, and that is through the internships that they offer for students. So actually you're already sort of on probation while you're doing your internship. So for businesses who are recruiting people on a regular basis, they usually have agreements with with educational institutions in the form of internship programs, because they know that students coming through the internship program, they've already had a sort of a look at the abilities of that individual, how they're performing, and that would make it easier to shortlist the candidates when vacancies do open up. Okay. Comparators, oh yes, it's not unethical. It's not unethical to headhunt specific individuals at other companies. That happens regularly. If I'm the best salesperson at a Toyota dealership 5 years in a row, then the other brands are also going to start headhunting me. I see you're doing well. And Toyota, then so it's a good position to be in for the person who has the job, because you could say, you know what, let's make, how do you think, the increase would be nice, based on the fact that 3 other of your competitors have contacted me as well. And usually these people know each other. It's not. It's done in a very organized manner. It's not a situation where the one company will phone the person directly and say, listen, I'm not even going to ask you if you're happy at your job. We are interested in you, and whatever. So they usually work through the dealership, through the manager. So listen, there is a staff member that we are interested in offering an opportunity. So there's a kind of a gentleman's agreement between. It doesn't always happen like that. It can be very. Oh ja. So deel van sales is van mense in sales afdeling is omdat jy daai central management stelsel het met almal se inligting en data op. Wat jy gebruik om sê om jou prospects en jou kliënte se verhoudings met hulle te bestuur, geld dieselfde ook met jou personeel, so jy kan hulle performances track en so aan. Daai inligting is nie sommer inligting wat nou gaan beskikbaar gestel word vir almal nie. So jy kan sê nou maar firewalls insit met sekere stelsels sodat die inligting, die algemene inligting is daar, maar nie die gedetailleerde inligting nie. Jy wil dit dan nog behou vir jouself sodat jy want anders is gaan die ouens net voor die rekenaar sit en sê, ons moet daai opkry. Yes, jy doen baie. Kom ons, so daai inligting gaan nie sommer net beskikbaar wees nie, maar die feit van die saak is die sales mense onder mekaar is ook deel van 'n netwerk. Baie van hulle is ook vriende met sales mense by ander competitors, so to speak. En hulle praat met mekaar, want ek sê aan die einde van die dag kom ons bly by die onderwerp van motorverkope. Om 'n Toyota te verkoop of 'n Hyundai te verkoop of 'n Volkswagen te koop. Hoe kan die proses verskil? Dit is die persoon self wat die verskil maak. Die brand speel 'n rol, yes, as dit mense het is baie brand conscious, en baie mense is, en hulle spesifieke voorkeure, maar die feit van die saak is regtig. Ek het 'n artikel gelees jare terug wat hulle gesê het, ek dink 50% van mense wat 'n spesifieke voertuig brand gekoop het, se volgende koop is nie weer dieselfde brand nie. En dis hoog. En dit het niks te doen met dink ek met die voertuig nie. Dit kan wees dat dit die voertuig nie voldoen het aan die vereistes wat jy gedink het gaan nie. Maar baie keer is dit ook die verhouding wat die spesifieke brand met jou het. Hoe gereeld hulle jou bel, of hulle jou bel, of hulle enigstens belangstel in jou, of hulle te veel vir jou bel. En jy tot 'n manier sê, ek kan nie wag om hierdie kaart te verkoop nie, want dan hoef ek nooit weer maar want hulle bel jou elke tweede week en eintlik het ek niks van hulle te sê nie. So daar's verskillende redes, maar ek sou sê meestal is dit as gevolg van die ou die kar gekoop en sy enigste toekomstige kontak met daai maatskappy weer is wanneer hy sy kar invat om te gediens te word. En dan, ek het nog gekyk op want gewoonlik verkoop mense nie karre sommer net elke tweede week nie. Jy weet, die ouens hou gewoonlik 'n kar ten minste 2 na 3 jaar toe, ten minste. Veral met die voertuie, die staan se diensplanne en daarvoor. So, ek kan onthou dat my huidige voertuig en my vorige voertuig, wanneer ek die voertuig ingeneem het vir diens, wat gewoonlik ook is by die plek waar ek het gekoop het, dan was die persoon wat die kar aan my verkoop het nie daar nie. Nie meer by die maatskappy nie. So, ja, en ek dink daai kontinuïteit, en dit weer eens, dit gaan maar van industrie tot industrie, daai kontinuïteit het 'n impak in die einde van die dag oor jou toekomstige besluit. Maar dan kan jy ook natuurlik net eenvoudig kry dat jy het 'n dat gekoop. Daai kar is net eenvoudig niks werk, jy het gebreek van dag 1 af. En as jy 'n probleem van dag 1 opgee, en uiteraard gaan dit dan 'n groot rol speel in jou volgende verkoop. En dit gaan nie sommer dieselfde brein wees nie.
Maar ek is dieselfde dus dit kan maar een van ons mense wat nog aankoop. Hy is ek ken hom by sy naam en goed, as ek wil instap, dan weet ek of van hom te gaan. Soos hy het wat verskillende reise.
Kyk, ek dink dit sluit so half aan by beide die onderwerp van die vorige hoofstuk en hierdie ene. As gevolg van die tyd wat ons inleef, because of the times that we live in and the fact that we're addicted to data and that we want instant gratification and dissatisfaction and instant solving of our problems, people are not, and we've seen that when we did consumer behavior as well, the different generations. This generation are not job loyal. They will move to and it's not necessarily because they are unhappy in their job. It's because that's trendy. It's like I buy a car and I keep the car for 2 years and I trade it and I buy another one. I get a job, I do a job for 2 years and then I move to something similar. It's very seldom, I think, that people move because they have made a complete career change. They remain within the same sort of industry because they studied in that particular field because it's interest. Daar's altyd 'n persentasie van studente in 'n spesifieke groep wat jy weet wat, ek het nog maar net gedoen want ek wou gestudeer het, maar ek is nie heeltemal seker wat ek wil doen nie en daarom het ek maar gegaan vir 'n generiese kursus want ek weet ek kan in 3-4 verskillende rigtings kan ek werkgeleenthede soek. En dan kry jy die wat kom ons sê baie spesifiek is. Jy kan ook byvoorbeeld nie met 'n IT kwalifikasie gaan accounting doen nie. So daar is sekere rigtings wat baie kom ons sê industrie spesifiek is. Maar ek dink die mense skuif rond van werke af en skuif baie gereelder tussen verskillende besighede deesdae. Bloot omdat dit is amper 'n trend. Jy word al gesien is iets fout met jou. Werk jy al vir 10 jaar by die maatskappy? Is daar fout met jou? Regtig? So we do still get the very loyal ones, and because you have such a continuous staff turnover, it's very hard to form a personal relationship with a particular company in that regard. But it is the times that we live in. It's fast moving. I mean, we got right. It's just the way we roll. With this generation rolls. I don't know. I said, but you can't talk to me about it because I'm totally old school in that regard. I stayed with my previous company for 25 years, and yeah, and so I like gradually building a relationship of trust. And some people are just they hate to be in a comfort zone. They want change regularly.
So, but also like with some companies, like most companies, they have like contract workers where you can only work for a certain period of time and then after
Yeah.
unless they offer you.
Yeah. because nowadays more companies have more contract or part-time workers, because if things go bad, sorry, we just don't renew the contract. If it's a full-time individual, it's a lot of trouble, especially if there's unions involved, and then it's difficult to get rid of somebody. You've got to really have a strong case, and therefore, yeah, people are almost reluctant nowadays to have to employ somebody full-time. I think initially, a number of years ago, it was the trend was a 3-month probation period. Once you've been appointed, now it's 6 months, because they want you to. I think you can still get away with 3 months and put your best foot forward, but 6 months, over a 6-month period, you would have experienced good and bad days, you personally, but also the business would have had good or bad days. So it would be a very nice indication if it's a good fit or not. So yeah, I think it's I think especially in education, for instance, the notice period, for instance, if you are going to leave the company as a full-time employee, it's 1 term. If I get a job now to start at a different company in January, for instance, I would have had to notify them at the start of this term already, because of the continuity of the position and the job towards the clients, students in this regard, and also to find somebody elsewhere, because that person would also be on a on a 3-month notice period or a 1-term notice period, because usually educational people move to between different educational institutions. They don't all of a sudden go into a different career field. But it will be interesting, because we're living in interesting times. I think there's going to be a lot of things. The other day, as I said, my brother-in-law 2 weeks ago phoned me from Singapore and says, "Listen, I now know how you feel, or how you felt a couple of years ago. I just lost my job now. After 17 years, Singapore Airlines, they called them in 2 Fridays ago, 4,000 people been retrenched." When last did you hear a plane? Daar sien nie vliegtuie nie. Because there's not that much international travel. Initially, what they did is they converted a lot of their planes into cargo planes, but still, there's a restriction. You can't just go and fly like you have in the past. I mean, if a country's not open, if the borders of a country's not open, you can't go in, you can't fly, you can't land. So there's limited flights, and obviously, yes, commercially, the person who pays for that seat is not there anymore. So I can understand that. So yes, there will be industries that's different. But then also, I heard friends of theirs, they started the business. Both they were with SAA. So both the husband and the wife were pilots, and they both lost their jobs. Exactly. You can't even go into training other pilots, because how are they going to fly? In what are they going to fly? So they started a small little business where they vacuum packed meat, especially meat, specifically red meat. Posted on Facebook. They have, after 3 months, 500 people that they have to deliver to now. So it's, yeah, that's a complete change. But I mean, that was forced. So yes, people don't stay with companies for very long. That's just the reality. Okay, so those are the sources that's most commonly used by companies to find new staff members, or to find candidates for the jobs that they have available. The application form, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the application form, because people, there are so many websites that you can actually access, and on that website you will just see and find templates free templates to download, to do a business plan, to do an application, to do a job description, to do a budget. So it's out there. What needs to be in that application form very clearly are the following. You must have detail on or personal section, educational section, and don't bother the company with information on anything more than I graduated or I matriculated from so-and-so a school in 1983. That's it. Nothing more. You don't even have to mention your subjects. It's irrelevant because you have studied beyond that and you now have a most current qualification. But start with usually. That's where you matriculated. That's what you got. So they know that you got a grade 12. Don't assume that because your highest qualification is a master's degree in business management that they think, okay, right, it makes sense. They should have passed matric, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to do a master's. Okay, don't assume that. Give it a little timeline, and the reason for that is sometimes the businesses look at very important detail. For instance, I can remember in my specific situation, I was a first year in 1983, and I graduated in 1986. Now it's a 3-year course. So why did it take 4 years? That was something that can pop up in the interview. It took 4 years because my dad lost his job or his company in my second year. So I had to go out and work because there's no money to pay for my studies. And then I returned the year after that. Okay, so that's why I did it in 3 years. Sometimes it could be a family tragedy, a death in the family. All of a sudden, you had to step in because there was a death in the family. You had to run the business for a year, and then only you can go back to studies. Stuff like that. Things happen. I think a lot of you would put down, or probably you won't, but some students would put down 2020. What happened in 2020? Oh, we know what happened in 2020. It was COVID-19. So the timeline is important, and that's why you have to list all your qualifications. You don't have to give it in great detail. One job I went for, they asked me, why did I do my honors in 2 years? I said, I didn't do my honors in 2 years. I did my honors in 1 year, but I did my master's in 3 instead of 2, because some of the research I did for my thesis, I did abroad. I was in London for a year. I worked there while I was actually still completing some of my research. So it opens the door for conversation to get to know the candidate better during the interview. But that information, that's why some information like that is important, or information like that is important. And not just one qualification and that's it. Are these guys stupid? How do they think I got a master's degree? Of course I have a grade 12. They want to. Same with your employment history. And with your employment history, especially what you did at that job and what is relevant to the job you're applying for. Okay, so don't put in your weighted tables while you're studying if it's not applicable to the job that you're applying for now. Unless you had a specific, duty that you performed. Like for instance, you were in a management position after 6 months of waitering, you became an assistant manager. Then that's relevant. Then you forget about the waitering thing. Then you mention the assisting managing, because that indicates some of your leadership skills and management skills, and that is applicable to the position that you're applying for now. Okay, so make sure that you go into that kind of detail when you describe your work experience or your employment history, basically. Other interests, make it very specific when you do the form. Hobbies. I don't have any hobbies. Are you a member? No, I'm not a member. Make it specific. Otherwise, people are going to write everything. They're going to write travel next to sport. Or they're going to write travel next to hobbies. It will give you an indication of what the individual enjoys. It will help you to maybe formulate a question in your interview to say, you listed that traveling is a hobby. Have you traveled extensively? I mean, because I could see you first year student, then you graduated, you studied for 6 years, and then you started working. So at what point do you travel, or do you travel regularly, or is it something that you want to do? Because you would know if you can expect somebody to maybe take additional leave because they want to travel to a destination. Those are all things that from an employer's point of view, they need to know, they want to know. Okay. Alle maak ons klaar? 5 minutes. I think so. It was what, 10? No, 4, 3.5, 4 minutes. So it's oh, we'll finish. No, we won't finish everything, but it's not a train smash. The interview itself, well, we might finish. We might go 2 minutes past, but there's no point in the amount of work that still needs to be done for us to actually go into another, or leave it to next week. The interviewing that happens itself, it's very important, people, and I think let me rather jump straight into the interview itself. And it's important for me, and I always, when I did recruiting and I did interviewing of candidates, I try to, it's a daunting, some people create an atmosphere that you are so, you haven't slept, you know you're going for an interview at that company, you don't sleep for 3 days before that, you are so anxious, you are sweating when you're waiting out there for your turn to come. That's not good. You're not going to be at your best behavior when you actually then enter for the interview. So it's very important to create an atmosphere where the interview, or when the interview is conducted, that relaxes the candidate. And therefore, also when you structure your interview, make sure that you trivial questions initially, just to get to know each other, just to relax the individual. Don't jump straight into it, into the tough questions, so to speak, or the job-specific questions. Find a nice mix and balance between personal questions and easy to answer questions, and work-related, a position that you're applying for related questions, and balance that maybe with a bit more personal ones. And as I said, I used to prefer to, when I did my interviews with candidates, to create an atmosphere where the person could actually show me their abilities. I interviewed candidates for a cricket coaching position at one school one day. And everybody asked him different questions, and my only question was, do you know what this job requires you to do? Yes, it requires me to coach boys and coach them cricket. I said, yes. There they are. Show me what you can do. That's what I want to do. When I interviewed for Virgin Active personal trainers for jobs, I said, come with me. Sinead, would you mind? This is one of our candidates who's applying for a new position here. Tell me a bit about yourself. What are you doing? Why are you training? How's your training regime? 3 times a day. What do you do? You quickly say something. I said, okay, there we go. Show me what you can do. Everybody knows what they have to do. How do you actually do it? So I wanted to establish if that personal trainer, for instance, is where he positions himself around the client. Okay, nowadays with social distancing, it's going to be totally different. But how did that trainer, where did he ask the right questions before he wanted to maybe touch her to support her for a specific exercise? He needs to get the consent. Is it fine for this particular exercise? I mean, I'm going to be here to support you, but it means that I might touch you. Is that okay with you? Those kind of things. But if you don't, those are things that you can't get in the interview, but you get it in a situation like that, where you actually offer what it says there on the next page, where role playing happens. We create a situation where the person can actually show their abilities. The knowledge is, why would I ask a person, oh, I see you got your qualification from UWC. Oh, yes, that's interesting. A friend of mine went to the UWC. Okay, that's interesting. You have the qualification. If you lied about your qualification, the system will catch you out. I don't have, why must I ask you so what did you do in that course? It's irrelevant. Okay, so try and create situations where you almost create situations and scenarios for the client to answer, rather than ask them a question that is sort of an open-end question where there's only one, or closed-end question where there's only one specific answer. And from a candidate's point of view, make sure that you do not, make sure that you don't ask them questions that is on very sensitive subjects, because you are probably not going to always get, and mostly you're not going to get an honest answer, because they're going to give you an answer of what they think you want to hear, because they're not sure what your opinion is on that particular subject, and therefore they are going to rather avoid it and give a sort of a generic answer. Don't ask them what. So what's your what would I say? What's your opinion on Black Lives Matter? Okay, I have an opinion. It might not be the same as yours, so I'm quite scared on how do I answer that correctly without maybe jeopardizing my chances of getting this job. So don't put the candidate in a position by asking that question. Create a scenario, for instance, where a situation like that might pop up, and ask them, what would you then do in a situation like that? Because that's going to give you a better answer, because they have to now assess the situation and answer accordingly. And from that, you will be able to determine what their opinion is on that particular subject, instead of just going out and say, right, what's your opinion on that? Okay, so try and create a sort of a scenario that they can easily or answer that very tricky question in a more easy manner. Because then you get to know the person as well. Because then you're going to get an honest answer. You're going to get an honest answer from the customers then, from the candidate then. Wie van julle het al begin werk soek? Nog nie? Ek dink is daar nie internships ook in julle derde jaar nie? Ja. Dit is 'n moeilike een geweest, want so ek sê my seun was nou ook experiential ure gedoen het nou. En dit was nou in lockdown, die maatskappy het net gesê, luister, ek het nog eens al my staf terug nie. So ek gaan nie nog iemand kry om nou hier te kom rondhang nie. En wie gaan vir hom wys? En dinge kwai verander. Maar die feit die saak is dat dit gebeur nog steeds. Mense begin gemakliker raak nou. Hulle is easier. Maar is nog steeds dis goed. Tarine, het jy enige vrae daar in die agtergrond, of is jy op jou derde koppie koffie?
Nee, ek is reg.
Hoe het jy vir ons koffie gemaak nie?
Die delivery service is offline.
Ek het gesê, ek wou sê dat definitief iets met oor foods, ja, hulle is nie so skerp geweest vandag nie. Het jy enige vrae Tarine, andersins, wat ek dink, sê, dis die einde van hierdie sessiekie en hierdie spesifieke hoofstuk ook. En soos jy agtergekom het, soos deur die werk gegaan het, is 100% relevant tot jou taak wat ons gister bespreek het. Niks vrae in die klas ook nie? Niemand nie? Ready to rock and roll? Het julle nou afperiode? Nee, julle het nie? Nee, waar nie, ek het ook nog 3 oor. Tarine, as daar niks vragies is nie, ek gaan hierdie videoetjies van die laaste 2 sessies gaan ek convert, en dan sal ek dit oplaai vanaand op Moodle vir julle, hoor. Baie dankie, geniet die res van jou dag, en nie die naweek as ons nie weer gesels nie.